Nathan Ferguson. He's a CPA. He worked for the U.S. Department of Education previously, and he worked with them for 10 years. And then he started private practice. This is 2020, and he's been in his private practice about 7 years. So you're talking about 17 years of experience. And he helps school owners, cosmetology schools, barber schools, any of the schools in the beauty industry, as well as other proprietary schools that are going through accreditation, and they need their financials right. They need them correct, because if your financials are not correct, you're not going to become accredited. And you're definitely not going to be able to get the U.S. Department of Education, the Title IV money, which are the grants, the Pell Grants that a lot of y'all are always asking about. So this is going to be a very important interview for you all. This is going to be on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. So every school owner, this is going to be one of the most important interviews and free information that you're going to get. So without further ado, Mr. Nathan Ferguson.
Hey, how you doing? Glad to be here.
So tell us a little bit about your background, Nathan.
Yes, my name again is Nathan Ferguson. I'm owner of a CPA firm located in Plano, Texas. Part about my background, I used to work as an accountant for the Department of Defense. Shortly thereafter, I went to go work for the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Inspector General's office out of the Dallas Regional Office. There, I was an audit manager. I audited a lot of numerous entities that receive federal, the U.S. Department of Education funds, such as proprietary schools, school districts, state education agencies. And I also audited internally the Office of Federal Student Aid in Washington, D.C. Part of my job also is to perform quality control reviews on the CPA firms that conducted these Title IV audits to make sure they did their job correctly. And again, just glad to learn a lot of information, provide that kind of service to the general public. So,
okay, so these school owners, I talk with them all the time, every day. A lot of them go to YouTube. If you type in how to open a barber school, how to open a cosmo school, a nail school, right. I'm one of the first people to pop up. So they're always asking that question. Okay, I'm going through accreditation. What about my financials? So can you give them some tips and systems, some things that they should be doing before they come to you, and to help them get through the accreditation? Of course, I know you're going to help them, but what are some of the first things they should do?
The first thing you should do is definitely make sure that you hired a qualified individual, and whether an accountant or a CPA firm, or if you're doing it individually, just to ensure that you have the right qualified person and systems in place to ensure that your financial record keeping is good. So one things that when I do engage with clients to already to prepare for accreditation, the first thing, of course, they need is an audited financial statement to submit with their application. So part of that, as that discussion is, first question to ask is, who's doing the financial record keeping for the institution? So you want to make sure that you designate a qualified person to do that, and to make sure that you have systems in place to produce accurate financial records and have accurate support documentation for those records when it gets audited.
Okay, now tell me some of the biggest mistakes that school owners can make. I know some are commingling accounts, putting their personal money in, taking money out, using it like their personal bank account or whatever. So give us some of the biggest mistakes that school owners make.
Yeah, some of the biggest mistakes that school owners make during the accreditation process is probably not being aware ahead of time of some of the financial requirements that they have to meet for the accreditation. So some accreditation agency require cash reserve requirements to make sure that is in place. As you stated before, they commingle their personal expenses with their business expenses. So just making sure that the commingling doesn't exist. And it goes back again to systems, making sure they have a good and accurate, whether it be QuickBooks, whether if they're doing it individually, having a QuickBooks system in place, if they're going to hire an accountant, making sure that person is qualified, get references to make sure that those individuals are qualified to produce accurate financial records to ensure that when I do come in and it's auditing time, the transition is very smooth. So,
Okay, now at the end of the year, just say a school owner has
Mhm.
$1,000 in the bank account.
Mhm.
Can they still be financially sound and pass their accreditation with $1,000 in the bank account?
Yeah, and that's really depends because, like I said, they do have to make sure they're financially solid. And the U.S. Department always recommends, of course, they have to meet the composite score. There's three ratios, of course, that goes into that composite score, and that's something again you definitely want to meet with me before you plan to get ready to do the financial statement audit to ensure that you are financially in good health, so that way you're good to go as far as accreditation agency and with the U.S. Department of Education.
So if they started with you and you work with them till the
Mhm.
end of the year, because they're gonna check, I guess, the bank statements from the previous year, is that correct?
Right. Yes.
Okay. So it's not based on how much cash they actually got in the bank account at the end of the year. Is that correct?
Yes.
So they could have $1,000 in the bank account at the end of
Mhm.
the year, and still their ratios. You said there are three different composite scores, correct?
There's one composite score, but it's made up of three different ratios.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that you get with me as soon as possible when you plan to do the accreditation, because sometimes maybe it might be not the best financial year to do it, to submit your financial statement audit with the application. So the earlier you reach out to me, the better. So that way I can help plan to make sure that the composite score is good and it meets the U.S. Department of Education standards, which will meet the accreditation standards as well. So,
Okay. So they can still become accredited even if they didn't make a lot of money. Is that
right,
correct? Because a lot
correct.
of because a lot of schools in the embryonic stage, the primary
Mhm.
stages, are not generating a lot of money because
Yes,
some students don't have a lot of money to pay. Credit
right.
score may not be. So when they get with you, you can help them along that road to help them pass.
Yes, I'll give them different strategies, different tips to make sure that, like I said, there's several ratios that are going to come into play. Definitely, you want to make a profit. You want to look at your equity. That's a big factor that comes into the several ratios. So there's different strategies that I can help out schools to not only pass, but make sure it exceeds to a great higher score. So
Okay.
yes,
That's really good to know. Now, a lot of these school owners are choosing people that are unqualified,
yes,
which means when they go through the accreditation, they're going to get denied. They may have to wait a whole nother year because
yes,
you got to wait another year to submit those financials, don't you?
yes.
And I've seen a lot of schools go under because of financials.
Right. Yeah, you want to make sure, getting back to that point of, you want to make sure, A, you hire not only a qualified an accountant, but a qualified CPA firm such as myself, and who has the knowledge, skills, and ability in this industry, the Department of Education industry, that knows the rules. The rules are constantly changing. DC, of course, always change regulations, it seems like, from year to year, month to month. So you want to make sure, and then on top of that, not only the Department of Ed, but also the accreditation standards as well. So it's just good that you know, or you connect with a CPA firm that knows that industry, that specializes in that industry, such as myself. And then I have the inner working knowledge of the U.S. Department of Education as well. So,
Okay, now, so there's quite a few things that the school needs to do. What's one of the first things that they should do before contacting you?
the first thing they should do is, I definitely would review, get your, like I say, structure in place. Definitely make sure that you have a game plan as far as, are you going to do in-house account? Or are you going to hire somebody externally? So as far as the financial aspect, you probably want to have those questions outlined, because that's the first questions I'm going to ask the client, is that who are you planning to who are you planning to make sure that to complete your financial books and your record keeping? So those are the kind of questions that you want to make sure you have in mind that are already answered before you contact me. And if not, please give me a call, and I can definitely, walk you and guide you through that process as well. So,
Okay, now, once they become accredited, they
hmm
receive their certification,
hmm
now it's time to go online and fill out the paperwork, the documents for the U.S. Department of Education.
yes.
Now, that process usually takes about, 60 to 90 days?
Yes, it can take a little longer than